ever had like a huge realization in therapy? One of those total aha moments that feels like a breakthrough.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, get this. What if I told you that even those deep insights, the ones that feel so real and personal, could be influenced by the placebo effect?
That's fascinating.
Yeah. Today we're diving deep into talking cures and placebo effects. This book explores how powerful the placebo effect can be, even in something as complex as psychodynamic therapy.
I'm intrigued.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a wild concept.
Well, and the book's subtitle, Memorials of Credulity, kind of hints at something really interesting.
Yeah.
Turns out medical history is packed with treatments that people totally swore by. But later on, they were revealed to be nothing more than like elaborate placebos.
So we're not just talking about sugar pills here, right?
No.
Like what kind of treatments are we talking about?
We're talking like using crocodile dung as a facial.
What?
Or pretending to administer enemas. These were treatments endorsed by, leading physicians back in the day.
Oh, wow.
But their effectiveness was totally based on just the power of belief.
It's kind of crazy to think about, right? Like, we all want to believe in cures, even without solid evidence.
Of course.
But how does this all connect to psychotherapy?
Well, think about it.
Yeah.
We go to therapy looking for insights.
Right.
Explanations for our thoughts and feelings and behaviors.
Yeah.
And sometimes the explanations we get, even if they feel really profound, might not be completely accurate.
So you're saying that some of the insights we gain in therapy could actually be
like insight placebos almost.
Yeah, low placebos. Wow.
Yeah.
But what's really driving the change then?
Right.
If the insight itself isn't necessarily true.
Well, that's where things get really interesting, I think. Our bodies have this incredible ability to heal themselves, right?
Yeah.
A cut heals.
Right.
A bone mends all without us consciously directing it. And this book suggests that healing capacity can be activated by all sorts of triggers.
Okay.
Including, our beliefs and expectations.
Okay, I think I'm starting to see the connection here. So if our bodies can heal based on what we believe,
right,
could our minds have a similar self-healing capacity?
Well, exactly.
Triggered by the right story, even if it's not totally accurate.
That's exactly what Talking Cures and Placebo Effects is exploring. It suggests that the power of belief, the ritual of therapy itself, the positive expectations we bring to it, might all be contributing to a placebo response, even in the realm of like our deepest thoughts and feelings.
So it's like the act of believing in an explanation, even if it's not completely true, can actually trigger a real change.
Precisely.
In our minds and behavior.
Yeah, and this raises a lot of fascinating questions, especially for therapists who are trained to help people uncover those genuine insights and make lasting changes.
Right, because if some of those therapeutic changes are actually driven by these insight placebos, how can therapists ensure they're helping their clients in an ethical way and an effective way? This feels like a slippery slope to me.
It is.
Where do we draw the line between genuine insight and these placebo effects?
That is the question.
Yeah.
It's a big one.
It is.
And that's a question that we're going to get into a bit more later on.
Okay.
But first, I think it would be helpful to look at a specific example from the book that really illustrates how powerful this placebo effect can be.
I'm all ears.
All right. So the book tells a story about Montaigne, the essayist.
Oh, yeah.
His father's servant was an apothecary.
Okay.
And he had this patient who was totally convinced that she had swallowed a pin.
Oh, no.
She was in agony.
Yeah.
Certain that it was lodged in her throat.
Oh, gosh.
Now, the apothecary knew there was no pin.
Right.
It was all in her head.
Oh, wow.
But he decided to play along.
Okay.
He made her vomit.
Oh, no.
And secretly tossed a bent pin into what she threw up.
He didn't.
The woman, believing she had expelled the pin,
instantly
felt relief.
Wow, that's incredible. So her mind tricked her body into healing based on a totally made-up story.
Based on a story, yeah.
Wow.
Exactly. And the book argues that similar dynamics might be at play in psychotherapy, too. We create narratives.
Oh, right.
We find explanations that fit.
Yeah.
And sometimes those explanations, even if they're not completely accurate, can trigger these powerful changes within us.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that story about the pin, right?
Yeah.
It's a perfect example of how a made-up explanation, a story, can have such a real impact.
Absolutely.
But then if we try to apply that to therapy, it kind of brings up some, serious questions.
Oh, sure.
Is it ever okay for therapists to use these, like, insight placebos?
Yeah, that's the big ethical question.
Right.
That the book really dives into.
Even if they, like, think it's going to help the client.
Well, and one of the things that they talk about is, like, informed consent.
Right.
You know, it's crucial in therapy.
Yeah.
Clients have a right to understand what's going on and make informed choices about their treatment.
Right. Exactly.
And using placebo insights without the client's knowledge, that could be seen as a real violation of their autonomy.
And it's not even just about autonomy, right?
No.
What about the potential for harm?
Absolutely.
If someone's basing, like, major life choices on an insight that later turns out to be totally wrong.
Right.
That could have, like, huge consequences.
For sure, yeah. It could send someone down the wrong path.
Right.
And cause more confusion and pain in the long run.
Absolutely, yeah. Think about their relationships, their, like, whole understanding of themselves, their whole life trajectory exists on this false thing.
Right.
So, okay, then how do we tell the difference?
Right.
Between a real helpful insight and one that's just this, like, placebo effect in disguise?
Yeah, that is the million-dollar question. And you know, the book talks about this concept called doctrinal compliance.
Doctrinal compliance, okay. What is that?
So imagine a therapist.
Yeah.
And they always interpret problems through the lens of, like, childhood trauma.
Okay.
The client might start to see, like, patterns of trauma everywhere.
Oh, wow.
Even when they don't actually exist, simply because it just fits the therapist's framework.
Interesting.
And that's doctrinal compliance.
Okay.
It's like the client unconsciously adapting their insights to align with what the therapist already believes.
So it's almost like the therapy itself is creating these false insights.
Right.
These insight artifacts, like the book calls them.
Exactly, yeah. It's like those optical illusions.
Right.
Where your brain tricks you into seeing something that's not really there.
Totally.
You know, the therapy process itself might be creating these distortions, leading to insights that, you know, feel really profound, but aren't necessarily grounded in reality.
It makes you wonder how many of our own, like, aha moments, you know, those, like, flashes of self-discovery we think we have are really based on, like, something solid and true, and how many are just these elaborate constructs shaped by our expectations or, like, things that other people have told us.
Yeah, it's a humbling thought.
Yeah, it is.
And the book even challenges this traditional idea of dreams as this direct window into the unconscious.
Really?
Yeah, they suggest that our dreams can be influenced by, like, suggestions and expectations we encounter in therapy.
Wow.
Creating what they call artifactual dreams.
So even our dreams could be part of this insight placebo effect.
Potentially.
Yeah, that's kind of unsettling.
Yeah, it is.
It makes you, like, question how much you can trust those things.
Right, exactly. It raises questions about the reliability of some of the tools we use to, you know, try to understand ourselves.
Right.
Like, the book even brings up this scale called the SEIP.
It's a CIP, okay.
Yeah, it's designed to, you know, try to measure the quality of insights in therapy.
Oh, okay, interesting.
But the book argues that scales like that can't really capture the complexity and nuance of what a genuine insight actually is.
Right.
It's like trying to measure someone's creativity with a ruler.
Yeah.
You might get some data, but it doesn't tell the whole story.
Totally. So we can't just rely on these, like, standardized tools to tell us whether an insight's real or not.
Oh, right. It's much more complicated than that.
It's a lot more nuanced.
Yeah. It requires careful reflection and critical thinking.
Right.
And maybe even a healthy dose of skepticism toward our own aha moments.
I feel like this is all starting to sound a bit bleak, though. Like, is there any way to, like, actually harness the power of the placebo effect in therapy in an ethical and effective way? Or should we just, like, avoid it altogether?
Well, that's a great question. And actually, one approach that that's gaining some traction is this idea of open placebos.
Open placebos. Okay.
Yeah.
What is that?
So it basically means being transparent with the client about the fact that they're getting a placebo treatment.
Okay.
And what's really surprising is that research suggests that even when people know they're getting a placebo,
what?
It can still be effective.
Lily, that's wild.
Yeah.
But okay, if you know it's a placebo, why would it still work?
It's still kind of a mystery, to be honest. But it seems like, you know, the power of belief, the ritual of, like, taking a pill or going through a therapeutic process, the positive expectations that we bring,
right,
they all seem to contribute to a placebo response.
interesting.
Even when we know consciously it's a placebo.
So it's like our conscious mind might be skeptical,
Right.
but on some deeper level,
Yeah.
something in us still buys into it.
Yeah, maybe.
Wow. And triggers the healing process.
Potentially. And this approach could be applied to psychotherapy too. Imagine a therapist saying,
yeah,
hey, we're going to explore this narrative.
yeah,
It might not be 100% accurate,
yeah.
but if you embrace it, it could actually help you heal.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So it's like acknowledging the possibility of placebo effects and then using them intentionally.
Yeah, intentionally and transparently.
Yeah, and transparently.
Which is key.
It shifts the focus away from the literal truth of the insight
Right.
to the client's belief in it.
Exactly.
And the potential for that belief to facilitate change.
Yeah, and that's a really different approach to therapy than what a lot of people are used to.
Totally.
And it raises a lot of questions about, what we think about healing.
Right.
The role of belief, the nature of therapeutic change.
Yeah, all these big questions.
Big questions.
This idea of open placebos, it's so interesting. It feels kind of paradoxical, right?
It is, a little bit.
Being honest about a placebo but still using it.
Exactly.
But if that can actually work,
right.
How does that change how we see therapy in general?
Yeah, it really challenges us to rethink, what are the active ingredients in therapy?
Right.
Is it the actual truth of the insights? Or is it the belief in those insights and the expectations they create?
Right.
And this book, Talking Cures and Placebo Effects, suggests that it could be kind of both. Even Freud himself wrestled with this.
Really?
Yeah, Freud acknowledged that there could be what he called obliging dreams.
Obliging dreams.
Dreams that seem to be influenced by the analyst's suggestions.
Okay.
But he also insisted that there was this deeper level of meaning.
Right.
The dream work that stayed untouched by outside influence.
Yeah.
But this book takes it a step further.
So it's challenging the idea that there even is a true meaning to uncover.
Yeah, kind of.
A pure unconscious.
Yeah. They suggest that even our most personal, internal things, even dreams, are shaped by the narratives that we come across.
Right.
The interpretations that we make and the context in which those happen.
So, okay, where does that leave us? If we can't totally trust our own insights or even our dreams, how do we even move forward in therapy? Do we just throw our hands up and say, it's all just stories?
Well, the book isn't saying that all insights are fake.
Okay.
Or that therapy's pointless.
Okay.
It's more about calling for a more nuanced understanding of how the placebo effect might be working.
Yeah.
Even in those deep forms of therapy.
So it's about being aware of it.
Yeah.
And then using that awareness to be more ethical.
Exactly.
In how we approach therapy.
It's about transparency with clients, helping them understand this, and working together to find narratives and explanations that feel meaningful, even if we know that they might not be the absolute objective truth.
Right, right. It's been a really fascinating look at Talking Cures and Placebo Effects.
Yeah, it's a great book.
I feel like it's really given me a lot to think about.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts for our listeners today?
Yeah, I think one thing to consider is, if our minds can heal based on stories we tell ourselves, even if those stories are made up, could we use that on purpose to get better? Could we learn to write our own healing fictions?
That's a great question.
It's something to think about.
Yeah, it really is. So, to all our listeners out there, as you go about your day, pay attention to the stories you're telling yourselves, the narratives you're choosing to believe in.
Right.
They might be way more powerful than you even realize.